Hi, I'm Mark Packer. I'm a cataract and refractive surgeon, anterior segment surgeon. I was in practice for many years in Eugene, Oregon. And more recently, I've been involved in clinical research around the world in a variety of anterior segment projects, including, importantly, femtosecond cataract surgery. The current state of femtosecond assisted cataract surgery has not met our original expectations for what this was supposed to look like. I've been involved in this field for over a decade now. And back when we started, it was pretty clear that the goal was the laser would replace ultrasound. And then we would simply aspirate the remaining pieces of the lens. And right away, we discovered that in fact, we would still need ultrasound, especially for 3+ and 4+ cataracts. And that was always going to be a disappointment because you would still be using ultrasound. And the idea was to get rid of ultrasound and its damaging effects on the corneal endothelium. Well, that was bad enough, but the other big problem that emerged very early on related to workflow and efficiency. It became clear that the laser would not be integrated with the phacoemulsification unit, and instead we would have two separate instruments where before we just had one, and this new larger instrument was going to take up even more space, and this was going to therefore require many surgeons to use a separate room for the laser. And this led to all sorts of creative workflow adaptations to somehow try to make the femtosecond laser efficient and useful. But all of these required more expense and more time. Some surgeons would employ another surgeon just to run the laser while they stayed in the operating room or went back and forth between two phaco rooms. And then they had the laser sort of pre-room. Others tried to put the laser in the operating room and go back and forth in that way. But no matter what they did, it ended up increasing the burden on the economics of running a surgical center. And that was certainly not what we originally had in mind. So I would have to say that, the current state of femtosecond laser surgery has not lived up to our original expectations. The recent Carinova pivotal study has provided some very exciting results because it has showed that even with higher grade nuclear sclerosis, the lens can be extracted with minimal to no adjunctive ultrasound usage. Actually, 88% of eyes had zero phaco across grades 2 to 5 of nuclear sclerosis, and 95% had zero phaco on grades of 3 or less. Most of the phaco energy used was simply short bursts to clear the nozzle. So it's really ultimately phaco-free, ultrasound-free. And this is fulfilling one of those key goals that we had for femtosecond laser surgery when we started this journey so many years ago. In addition, the pivotal study has really shown the ease of use of the robotic docking arm. That's a key element because, of course, docking the laser is a time-consuming and can be a challenging piece of the procedure. With the robotic arm, this is made almost effortless. And the other piece that is so important is that the laser is integrated with the phaco unit. So you only have one piece of equipment. And this integration has fulfilled the other element that we always wanted in femtosecond laser surgery, which is it would be one unit that replaces phaco rather than adding a second unit that complicates workflow and decreases efficiency. Photoemulsification is a completely new approach to femtosecond laser cataract surgery. Current state-of-the-art femtosecond lasers have a single spot that traces a path through the lens and cuts it up. It's sort of like cutting the lens with a toothpick by poking it in individual spots and then hoping those spots are close enough together to create a cleavage plane. Photoemulsification is completely different because it uses a photonic wavefront modification of the laser beam to actually create an array of laser spots that are fired simultaneously into the lens. And what this does is to increase the efficiency of lens cutting dramatically. So you have multiple spots firing at the same time in different locations that create these cleavage planes and break up the cataract into hundreds of 200 micron cubes. So if you think about standard femtosecond lasers and what the lens looks like after cutting, you have pie-shaped pieces or a sort of a cross in the middle, or you might have some cylinders, something like that. That's completely different from photoemulsification, in which now the lens is converted into this homogeneous volume of little 200 micron cubes. And of course, these little tiny cubes can simply be sucked out. They're smaller than the diameter of your aspiration port, significantly smaller, right? So that's how it works. The genius behind this is not just the modification of the laser wavefront to create this array of simultaneous laser spots. It's also something called threshold mapping. So the laser actually can sense the density or toughness of the lens at different locations within the lens material and then modify the amount of energy that is placed in that area to efficiently and effectively cut the lens no matter the density. And that's why we can now use this laser to extract cataracts of any density, not just the moderate, soft type lenses that we're used to being able to do, but even, really, rock hard, dense cataracts can be cut up with photoemulsification because it's able to adjust the amount of energy at any given spot so that it can effectively cut even these really dense cataracts. So this is a remarkable advance. It's not really even in the same category as what we have considered sort of state-of-the-art femtosecond laser assisted cataract surgery. This is no longer sort of assisted. This is actually performing the emulsification of the cataract, and then all that's left is to aspirate the remaining cubes, the little tiny cubes, and clear the bag. So it's really a different procedure than what we've come to think of as flax. One of the really fascinating conclusions that came out of the Carinova pivotal photoemulsification study had to do with the amount of time that is required for aspiration of the lens. We know from prior work that in order to achieve complete lens extraction without using ultrasound requires more time. And this is something that is not given a lot of attention, perhaps because it's not a very positive attribute of current state-of-the-art femtosecond assisted cataract surgery. But it is possible to completely remove a lens after it's been cut up by a standard femtosecond laser. It just takes more time because irrigating and aspirating out those big chunks of lens material can be done simply with vacuum and aspiration, but without using ultrasound, that is going to take significantly more time. But that's not the case with photoemulsification. So what we found was a significant reduction in that amount of time of aspiration, almost 100% more time when standard femtosecond laser assisted cataract surgery is used compared to photoemulsification. So a really big reduction in aspiration time. And that was something that was not necessarily expected. It kind of makes sense when you think about how photoemulsification works and that now we've got these tiny little 200 micron cubes that we're just going to suck out of the capsular bag. And by the way, that also facilitates endocapsular surgery. So it's nice that we're operating even further from the corneal endothelium and avoiding those annoying cases that result in post-op day one corneal edema and that sort of 20 not quite happy visual acuity on the first post-operative day. We can perform our aspiration in the depths of the capsular bag, remove those little 200 micron cubes quite safely, and do it quickly in almost half the time that it takes to aspirate the pieces that are cut up by a standard femtosecond laser today. So this is, again, a really big advance that shows how photoemulsification is fundamentally different. It's a different procedure. It's not femtosecond laser assisted cataract surgery anymore. It's photoemulsification. One of the primary metrics that we always use to judge the efficiency and safety of phacoemulsification is a measure of ultrasound energy. How much energy has it taken? How much energy is released in the eye? And we know that this energy is correlated with corneal damage, right? The more ultrasound energy that it takes, the more corneal edema we get on post-op day one, and the more corneal endothelial cells we ultimately lose, putting that patient or that eye at risk for later pseudophakic bullous keratopathy and maybe even the need for a corneal graft. So we don't like energy. We want less energy. And what we see with photoemulsification is a dramatic reduction in cumulative dissipated energy. Published results with other systems, including LENSAR, LensX, and Victus, show significant reductions in CDE compared to standard manual phacoemulsification, reductions on the order of 7 to 30%, for example, which, that's good. We're happy. But with photoemulsification, the reductions are on the order of 85 to 99%. I mean, we are completely doing away with ultrasound and all of the damage that ultrasound can do. You may know that ultrasonic energy in the eye produces free radicals, and free radicals cause oxidation of cell membranes, and that's what destroys the corneal endothelium. So we really would prefer not to use ultrasound. I mean, ultrasound has been fabulous. It was obviously a big advance in the 1960s. It's hard to believe how long ago that was now when Charles Kellman first thought of the idea of using ultrasound to break up a cataract. But, now it's almost 2023 and it's time to move on from ultrasound, and the place to move is photoemulsification. One of the parameters that I think surgeons are always interested in knowing is what's the learning curve going to be like when adopting a new procedure or technique. And the learning curve with femtosecond laser assisted cataract surgery has been explored. There are several publications looking at, for example, a surgeon's first 25 or first 100 cases and how the procedure improved in terms of safety and in terms of efficiency as time went on. And in the pivotal trial, it was not particularly an endpoint at the beginning to look at learning curve, but after the data came in, of course, that's one of the things that's of great interest. And what we found was that even in the surgeon's first 20 cases, there was already an increase in efficiency. So the time required to do the case had decreased by about 10% over those first 20 cases. But in the next cases, the next 30 cases and the next cases after that, the average time reduction went from 34% to 67%. So there was a tremendous increase of efficiency that we saw over the course of those cases, approximately 45 cases that were performed after the first 20. So I think this all goes to say that, as a busy surgeon adopts photoemulsification, over the first few weeks, really that learning curve will be done. It's not going to take more than a few weeks to get to maximum efficiency. And even the place where you start is going to be fine. It's going to be acceptable in terms of the length of time. It's certainly going to be more efficient than femtosecond laser assisted cataract surgery because you're not transferring the patient back and forth. You're not going from room to room, or you don't need that extra surgeon in the other room doing the laser. You can do it all yourself now. So there's going to be increased efficiency for a number of reasons, but also just in the first 2 to 3 weeks of doing photoemulsification, the surgeon will really reach optimal efficiency by getting to the top of the learning curve very quickly. One point I'd really like to make is about, safety and effectiveness, because I think that's how we always evaluate new technology. And the news here is all good for photoemulsification. The safety profile will be equivalent or superior to today's standard femtosecond laser assisted cataract surgery. And I think especially when we start to get longer term data, we will see that with more experience, the photoemulsification approach is gentler and kinder on the corneal endothelium. So the news is really all very good for photoemulsification, and I'm very excited to adopt this new technology and bring it to surgeons around the world.